Disney began entertaining children with a drawing of Mickey Mouse in 1928 and produced the world's first animated feature film less than 10 years later. This company grew from the mind of one man to become one of the world's largest corporations. But make no mistake, Disney is a corporation, and like all big businesses, it has a lot of secrets hidden beneath its pretty polished exterior. Peek beneath the palaces and past the princesses, and you'll discover a slew of disturbing Disney facts that the company doesn't want you to know. Stay tuned to find out all the must-know dark facts. First up, you can find human bones at Disneyland. When the Pirates of the Caribbean ride debuted at Disneyland in 1967, all the skeletons were real human bones. Cast members continue to insist that there are no more human bones on the ride. However, some people are still skeptical. According to one Disney expert, there are 4 remaining bones on the ride. 2 are on the small islands just after the boat drops to the lower level. 1 is in the bedchamber mounted on the headboard, and the other is trapped under a flaming timber in the jail scene. Secondly, the misogyny that is everywhere in The Little Mermaid. Ariel must not only trade her voice for legs, but she must also leave her family and friends behind when she marries Prince Eric, abandoning her mermaid heritage and focusing solely on fitting into her husband's world. I might add, a husband she barely knows and has barely spoken to before they marry. Another pertinent question is why he has to sail her so far away on his boat. Next up, there's a heart-wrenching reason why Bambi's mother dies. From Bambi to Frozen, mother figures are either absent or die tragically early in the story. As it turns out, there's a heartbreaking reason for this. Disney may have felt indirectly responsible for the death of his own mother. After he became wealthy, Disney purchased a home for his parents. He sent some of his studio employees over to repair the furnace, but they did it incorrectly, and his mother inhaled the poisonous gases and died as a result. Disney never publicly addressed the tragedy. Fourth on our list, the scary death on a ride at Disney. Despite being constantly labeled as the happiest place on earth, the Disney parks have been the site of a few tragedies over the years. One of these incidents occurred on the now defunct America Sings ride. Deborah Stone, a cast member, began working as a ride operator 2 weeks after the Carousel of Progress became the America Sings attraction in 1974. She was caught between the attraction's rotating stages one day and died as a result. For years, cast members have claimed that they can still hear Deborah telling them to be careful. Next, the dark origins of Pinocchio. People envision Pinocchio as a sweet young puppet who aspires to be a real boy. The Disney film depicts his adventures with his friend and advisor Jiminy Cricket, and how they eventually lead him to his dream of becoming a human. Carlo Collodi, the original creator of Pinocchio, wished for a different, more dark image. Collodi originally created the character for a serial story in Italian newspapers to show children the consequences of bad behavior. Collodi's Pinocchio was cruel and cunning. His Jiminy Cricket was dubbed Talking Cricket, and when the cricket tried to give Pinocchio some sound advice, the puppet boy murdered him with his mallet. Throughout the story, Pinocchio is tortured in various ways as a punishment for his bad behavior. Collodi intended to end the story with Pinocchio's death by hanging, but due to a fan outrage, Collodi was forced to continue. So he decided that Pinocchio's life would be spared, in exchange for even more heinous punishments from then on. Interestingly enough, Walt Disney still rules the franchise. Even decades after his death, Walt Disney maintained complete control over how he wanted his brand to be run. Walt was so particular about the operation of Disneyland and Disney World that he forbade employees from growing mustaches. The policy lasted until the year 2000. Walt Disney preferred clean-shaven employees, presumably to maintain a squeaky clean image. Full beards, certain piercings, and certain hair colors are still prohibited among employees. What's worse, Walt himself wore a mustache for the majority of his life. Disneyland and Disney World have both relaxed their rules to allow for neat, well-groomed facial hair. Next, disturbing, dark Finding Nemo potential murders. Finding Nemo is to blame for the goldfish extinction. Following the release of the film in 2003, a flurry of children began flushing their pet fish down the toilet. The fish could then swim back to the ocean. One of the characters in the film tells Nemo that all drains lead to the ocean, which is patently false. But try telling that to a kid who thinks they're releasing a captive goldfish back to its long-lost ocean family. Flushed fish do not end up in the ocean. Flushed fish generally do not survive the journey, but even if they do, they end up in the sewage system. The gases will kill them quickly here. They would never survive in the water treatment plant. The real sinister truth behind Disney princesses. The Disney princesses suffer from a variety of mental illnesses. Belle clearly suffers from Stockholm Syndrome as she begins to sympathize with her captor and then falls in love with him. It's a classic case. Ariel struggles with identity and has such a hard time accepting who she is that she completely changes her identity and species hops from mermaid to human with the help of a sea witch. Doesn't that sound like a healthy body image? Meanwhile, Cinderella, a Disney princess standard, is so messed up that she has her own complex named after her. A Cinderella complex occurs when a person person remains in a clearly dysfunctional situation due to a fear of independence. Cinderella didn't require a costly pair of shoes. She needed to put her housekeeping skills to use and earn her own money, so she wouldn't have to wait for a fairy godmother to appear. This one will certainly surprise you, but people have actually tried to spread their loved ones' ashes at the Disney park. People have attempted to scatter their children's ashes at Disneyland, and it almost always ends in a disaster. One couple had a child who loved the Haunted Mansion exhibit, so they scattered his ashes in the attraction's graveyard. However, because there are cameras all over Disneyland, they were caught doing it. The couple was sprinkling some kind of powdery substance at Disneyland shortly after the post-9/11 anthrax scare, and of course, all hell broke loose. The attraction was closed down, and hazmat teams were dispatched. Do not scatter ashes at Disneyland. It's not permitted. Unfortunately, the ashes will end up in the air conditioning system due to the ventilation system. Now, the original story of Sleeping Beauty is tragic and will shock you. Sleeping Beauty by Disney is a classic tale of a princess in peril and the brave prince who comes to her aid. The original 17th century Italian story begins similarly. The princess, Talia, pricked her finger on a spindle and fell asleep, fulfilling an earlier prophecy. The rest of Talia's story is far too graphic for a children's book. The man who eventually came to Talia's rescue is not a prince, but a king. Talia was not awakened by the king's kiss. He gathers the fruits of her love, which is a nicer way of saying that he raped her while she was sleeping. She gave birth to twins 9 months later, and one of them sucked the splinter from her finger, waking her up. Talia subsequently falls in love with the king, but the king is still married. His queen orders that the twins be kidnapped, cooked, and fed to the king, who's unaware. Fortunately, she fails. Lucky people, it's said, are blessed by fortune while in bed, was the moral of the story. Next up, are there naked women in some Disney films? Is a naked woman in a Disney animated film? Yes, it can be found in the original version of The Rescuers. The woman, described as a Playboy centerfold by longtime Disney animator Tom Cito, appears for a brief moment while Bianca and Bernard ride by in a sardine can. It's a photograph that appears in exactly 2 frames. Years later, when the film was re-released, the original 1977 negative was used, and the naked lady was resurrected. This resulted in a worldwide recall on all the videotapes, and the image was removed from later versions of the film. Is there anything else like this in Disney movies? Maybe. Continue your search. And finally, the terrifying injuries that have taken place at the Disney theme parks. Of course, not every incident results in a fatality, but some injuries sustained at Disney, whether as a guest or as an employee, are quite horrific. In 1983, an 18-year-old man was paralyzed after falling off Space Mountain. In September 2000, a very young 4-year-old boy fell out of the Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin ride and was dragged underneath the car, sustaining serious internal injuries, cardiac arrest, and brain damage. Despite his survival, there was a significant delay between the time of the incident and the time medical emergency personnel were contacted, prompting Disney to seriously review and adjust their policies. Tragically, it was too late for this child, who lived with the ramifications of that fateful ride until his death in January 2009. Several accidents have occurred at Disney's California Adventure, including one in which the California Screamin' attraction malfunctioned and a train rear-ended another, sending 15 guests to the hospital. And there you have it, everything you need to know about some dark Disney facts that will surely keep you up at night and questioning your childhood memories. And as always, thanks for watching.